The Ask Not What Your Country Can Do For You event can be such a godsend for the US player. While its effects can be mixed, it is such a great opportunity to hit the reset button and turn the tide, and we'll take a closer look at it here today on Legendary Tactics. Ask Not What Your Country Can Do For You is a unique card in Twilight Struggle. Though there are other cards that allow you to discard cards from your hand, this is an event that allows you to potentially dump an entire bad hand, which has the capacity to reverse your fortunes as the US. There's not much that the Soviets can do about this one, but let's take a closer look regardless. First of all, let's take a look at the event card. Ask Not What Your Country Can Do For You is a 3-op US mid-war starred event card. Triggering the event allows the US player to discard any or all cards in hand and draw the same number of cards from the deck. The number of cards discarded must be decided prior to drawing any replacements. For the Soviet player, the path to managing this card is an easy one. Simply hang on to the card until your last action round, when the US has the fewest cards in hand, and play it then. It is counterintuitive, but you may be the one to get lucky here. It is possible for the US to draw a DEFCON suicide card or more scoring cards than they have action rounds to play them, either of which can result in a sudden auto victory for you. You don't need to send this to the space race, especially as those 3 operations points will certainly be quite useful, and you really don't want this card to stay in the deck. This is a tempting card for the US to bring back with SALT negotiations or Star Wars, so it is better to get it out of the deck than to risk it coming back in the American hand. Unfortunately for you though, this card can help the American player get rid of DEFCON suicide cards like Lone Gunman, or disadvantageous scoring cards which may be held until last as the US tries to mitigate them. To some extent then, this is a risk you will have to take in exchange for getting this card out of the deck, but you may wish to either space this card or hang on to it until the following turn if you divine from your opponent's furrowed brow that the US player has something awful in hand. For the US player, when you get this card, don't be overexcited. Look at your hand and figure out how necessary it is to play this card for the event this turn. You may want to hold it over to the next turn, maybe even using the China card to carry over a nasty card or two, build up the worst possible hand, then play this to get rid of it. It is also best played after the turn 7 reshuffle, as the discarded cards are not going to return. This card should obviously be played in the headline phase if possible, as doing so frees up an action round that can be used to play one of the shiny new cards that you draw, and it also gives you the maximum choice of cards to discard. As mentioned earlier, obviously you should prioritize discarding DEFCON suicide cards like Lone Gunman, and scoring cards in regions that will cost you a lot of VPs. Next up are the powerful recurring Soviet events, especially ones like socialist governments, OPEC, and Muslim Revolution. After that, you should assess how useful it is to discard starred Soviet events like Fidel and We Will Bury You. Depending on the situation, you may want to play these to get them out of the deck. For example, U2 Incident and Cultural Revolution might be just fine to play. Fourthly, you should prioritize dumping weak neutral events like Summit or Latin American Death Squads. Finally, you may also consider discarding low-ops, low-value American events like Kitchen Debates, and you may also consider, before the turn 7 reshuffle, discarding US events that are valuable but, because of the board situation, are best kept in the deck as insurance, like Sadat Expels Soviets. The only downside to this card is that its effects can vary. It's not uncommon for you to draw a fresh batch of cards that is about the same value or even worse than the cards you discarded. And as mentioned before, it is possible for you to draw a DEFCON suicide card that you can't work around or draw up more scoring cards than you have action rounds remaining. Still, it's generally a risk worth taking, and this risk can be minimized the earlier you play the event in the turn. If you have a workable or even a great hand, you will want to carry this one over to the following turn. Luckily, if you do have a solid hand, it's more likely you're going to be able to do this. If you must play this for the ops, it's not a terrible decision provided you do so before the turn 7 reshuffle or if cards like Salt Negotiations or Star Wars are still in the game. While it may not be necessarily the best target of Salt Negotiations' card recursion ability, it's good to know that it's available there if you need it. So in summary, for the USSR, this is a great US event that is generally easily mitigated by saving it until your last action round, or at least late in your turn to minimize the impact. For the US, this card can be a lifesaver. Play it as a headline to discard a bunch of distasteful Soviet events and weak neutral cards, or carry it over until the next turn if you won't get enough value out of its effect this turn. This has been our analysis of the Ask Not What Your Country Can Do For You event card in Twilight Struggle. We hope you got some value out of this video, and if you did, please take a minute to like, comment, and subscribe down below. We look forward to seeing you here next time on Legendary Tactics.